so good to see you in the flesh. Thank you for taking a minute out. I've loved this album, and there's so much that goes into the backstory and the cats that you have on this. So thank you for taking a minute out. So first and
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So first and foremost, walk a mile in my shoe. It's an interesting backstory here. You have one foot that's larger than the other.
Well, not necessarily larger. Well, yeah, it is larger, but not larger in
Yeah.
lengthwise. It was basically like a club foot. I mean, would be the best explanation for people who have never seen it. But it's pretty much the same thing that the Elephant Man had, but it affected my foot. And thank God not this beautiful face, but it affected my foot. And so I had several operations from the time that I was born. My last one was in 84, so it's not like I haven't had an operation in about 40 years. But I still live with the pain of it. Like I need a cane now, and the arthritis and the bone, like basically my bones in my left leg would are like 50 years older than me. That's the best way to kind of explain it. And the reason I don't talk about it a lot is because I never wanted it to be like, oh, woe is me. That's number
Right.
one. Number two, my parents never acted like that. My parents, I still played sports and everything, but now that I'm older, I'm, dealing with the effects of, I mean, with the effects of it, and I'm walking with a cane, and I have to think about things in a different way. But I never wanted the pity. And then the other reason I don't bring it up is because the more you bring it up, the more people can tell you. Sometimes they're like, well, let me tell you what I'm going. This is what I did. I did yoga and I did this. And it's not that there are things I can do to be able to walk with a little more ease, but this is my story. I'm going to add, there's no way I'm getting rid of this. And so then sometimes when I talk to people, I don't tell them everything, because the next thing is what you could do is
Yeah.
rub some cod liver oil on it. So
Yeah.
that's why.
So why was now the time to make this the theme of your album, to make this the
Wait a minute,
title?
urgency. I mean, basically, sorry, there's a truck going by, but
Oh,
urgency. I think a lot of people, I knew a lot of people didn't understand why I make the moves that I make. So to a certain extent, it was urgency, and the more I tell the story, the better understanding. When I wanted to do this record, it was originally supposed to be on Smoke Session Records, and Paul wanted to hold off on it. You know, because of some other reasons. I just said, I'm gonna go ahead and do it on my own. So I did it on my own. And it's also based in conversations that you have, even sometimes with your booking agent or management. They're like, you should do this for 2025, you should do this for 2027. And some of those things are hard for me to look at, because I'm like, now let's deal with now, because I don't know whether I'm going to be able to travel as much as I want to right now in 2 years, because what I'm dealing, it's kind of hard for me in the airport now. I don't like to tell that, because then people say don't call Orin, but it's different for me in airports now, depending on how the connections are, how far I have to walk. I mean, definitely I could get a wheelchair, but I don't feel like doing that right now.
yeah.
I'm too cool for that.
Yeah.
So the doing it now is like the urgency and letting people know the real story. So you walk a mile in my shoe, then you'll understand why I need to do this record right now.
Yeah.
Not because I feel like I'm not trying to sound morbid or anything, but I know I'm going to change a few things in the upcoming years. I'm teaching at Rutgers. I may teach a lot more to stay closer to home because of traveling. And I mean, I'm wearing compression socks now, but my whole leg is substantially larger than my right leg. So I have to worry about blood clots when I'm on the plane. It's just different things that hopefully this record and me telling my story will help other people understand, when I'm like, no, I got to do this now. I
Yeah.
don't want to think about 2027. I want to do it now.
Yeah.
And if whatever I can do to get closer to doing it at that time, that's why. There is a level of urgency in my life, because, and then, honestly, you can go down the list: Jim Rotundi, Montez Coleman, Russell Malone, Ralph Peterson. You know, I mean, the only difference is we knew Ralph Peterson was sick, but I still didn't think, you know, that was the strongest man on the earth to me.
Yeah.
So I didn't know one day he wasn't going to be here. You know, one of my best friends I lost in the middle of the pandemic. So when I see those live, like Montez was my age, maybe 2, 3 years older than me. So when I see these lives taken from us in those moments to continue to create music, why should I wait? You
Yeah.
know, did Russell Malone know that was going to be his last time getting on a plane? He had no idea. And I bet you if we had the opportunity to ask him, he wouldn't say, "Oh, I knew." But that's why there's an urgency. And every time I get on the piano, I hope, you know, to give my all and play like this is one of the last times I may play because I want it to be remembered. I want to give my all. And that's what this record is about. And my all doesn't have to be me playing 50 choruses of the baddest solo or whatever. My all is, hey, I also enjoy singing and I enjoy vocalists. So why have I held off doing this record for so long? There's two other on the two other Captain Black records, I had vocalists. But every time I go to put them on a record, I either hear the producer say, "Well, this one doesn't fit this song. This one, this album." So there's like a couple tracks out there in the stratosphere that was recorded with the big band with vocals, and I'm like, you know what? I want to do this. That's a part of my legacy. My mother was a singer. I grew up in the theater with my father, so just that kind of idea of entertaining and entertainment is a part of my story too. And if I keep waiting, I'll never get to tell that story.
And you have a wonderful power lineup of musicians on here. What was kind of the methodology? What was the mindset of putting all of them together on this album?
Well, honestly, the mindset of putting the band alone, that's been the band. That's the family.
Yeah.
So the Captain Black big band, that's the family.
Yeah.
That was my only focus. Then, you know, I went in and I'm like, well, who do I want as a singer? At the time, we had just done a project with Lisa Fischer, and we had also done one with Diane Reeves, and that's how we ended up with Lisa Fischer because Diane couldn't make one of the shows. So it just really started this connection that was amazing, you know. And I enjoyed. She's just an amazing human being and musician and artist, all of it. She's just everything in one. So that's where that idea came about. Bilal, I've been waiting to do something with for years. You know, we I've known him since he was 14 years old. He blessed us on one of my records back in 2000 or 2001, 2003. So we hadn't recorded or played together in pretty much that amount of time. And that's Bilal's like family to me. So I really wanted him to be a part of it. Joanna, same thing. Joanna and Bilal went to high school together, so I've known them all the way since back then. And Paul Jost is an artist that I've met in the last 10 years, and is man, he's just as you hear on the record, he's awesome.
Yeah.
One of my favorite singers out here right now, and so that's where that pretty much came from. And Nicholas, I called that morning because I actually looked online. I was like, when the reason I looked online, I was looking to see what I was going to do when I left the session. I was like, oh, let me see who's playing so I can go hear some music when I leave the session. And then I realized that Nicholas was in town. So I called him. I said, hey, man, you feel like coming by the studio and playing on these 2 tracks? And that's how that came about.
Wow.
Same with Jesse Fisher. I called Jesse Fisher like 2 days before because you know, one of the things I hate doing is overdubbing keyboards on over myself because I tend, you know, it just seems like stacking yourself. What I love about a keyboardist or an organer, a keyboardist or an organist when they're with me is that they don't play exactly what I'm going to play. You know, and no matter what, when I comp for myself, I end up playing exactly what I already play. So that's why I called Jesse Fisher. I thought it'd be a great idea to have somebody come and he was just such a I've known him for years and just watching him grow in his own career and really what he added was ridiculous. And all that's live. There was no overdubs, no guitar, I'm sorry, keyboard overdubs. Everything on the record is totally live.
Wow.
So basically it started with the Captain Black Big Band, and the vocalists were just friends and family.
Yeah.
No matter the studio, Dave Stoller, that's been friends and family since he was in high school. The engineer Katsuhiko Naoto, I've been dealing with Katsuhiko now 25 years. So everything about this record is really just reconnecting with my family in the village and telling a story that some of them didn't even know. You know, a lot of the people in the band, they just thought I walked hip, like I had a little limp, you know, and then some people knew, but they didn't know the really what's going. And still some people are confused. Some people look at the album cover and don't get it. You know, one it was actually Nicholas. He was like, why is the record called Walk a Mile in My Shoe, but it has two shoes on it? And then I was like, you know, I told him, I was like, if you look, the one shoe is bigger than the other, and that's the story. But the way that the photographer, Christopher Cafield, great photographer, took it, you actually don't see, which is great too.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't see that that shoe is bigger, and which is amazing because that's how I was raised. Even though I had that shoe, my family, my one of my cousins said to me, he said, "Man, you know, when we were younger, we weren't even allowed to talk about it. like,
Yeah.
like nobody talked about it." And I just because I could walk, I played, I still ran, I did whatever I had to do. It was like, you know, your cousin has a bigger shoe. All right.
That's that. So what are you ultimately hoping the listener gets from this album? What's your hope?
You know, I, I'm going to unfairly answer that question because um, I've already gotten some feedback. So what I will say is I really just my personal thing was I hope that everybody got a better view and into my life and into my home. You know, a better view of who I am as an artist, but also as a human being, because these songs are all songs that speak to different parts of me, uh, different parts of my life, different times. So I originally I'm just like, I hope you get a better picture of who I am. Um, because I've been forced to tell a lot of my own story, meaning because I wasn't on a major label or you know, a lot of those things never came my way. So I was always I had to tell my own story. So with that, sometimes while you're telling your own story, it can be perceived in several different ways. You can seem egotistical, you can seem arrogant, you know, because you're supposed to wait for somebody else to tell your story. So this was an opportunity, if anything, on the record for people to hear and see my story. Then you could, if you still think what you think.
Yeah.
But this is probably the most raw and honest. I almost thought about putting a picture of my foot on the cover, which is something I wasn't brave enough to do yet. But that that alone was what I intended for the record to get a true look into my life. Like this
Yeah.
is who Orin Evans is. And but what it seems has happened from all the you know the feedback I'm getting from people, the private messages, it actually did that for everyone. So instead of everybody opening and seeing, hey, this is Orin, and now I get it. Some people, the music, the songs, my story allow people to look inside themselves and get a better picture of themselves, which is not what I thought was going to happen.
Yeah.
But a lot of people like, man, you allowed me to deal with this from this record, and I didn't know I had to deal with this. So no matter what, I hope it's something that gives everybody a chance to look inside themselves, see what how beautiful they are,
Yeah.
and love themselves.
So are you doing any live shows? What are you doing for promotion for this album? What's coming up for you?
Well, I'm still super available to fill any dates with the big band. As everybody knows, taking a big band on the road is pretty hard.
Yeah.
But we spent this summer doing a bunch of gigs, and then we did a couple Battle of the Band gigs with Kurt Elling and other people, and then moving up. This we're what month are we in? September. September, I'm actually doing a release for it, but it's going to be a quartet. So we're doing some of the tunes from the big band record. We're playing at Jimmy's in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. That's coming up next. I don't know when this airs, but that comes up September 15th.
Okay.
And then the big band is playing the Kimmel Center, which is I don't know if you're familiar with the Kimmel Center is one of our premier performing arts centers here in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
So we're doing a big party to the day after Thanksgiving. which is always a great time around here because everybody's home. And we have some special guests. Can't announce them yet, but that's going to be our major release of the record November 29th. And then meanwhile, I'm continuing to do things as a leader of just my quartet and touring, and then my co-led group that I lead with Eric Rivas and Sheet Waits, Tar Baby, is going out on the road most of September, pretty much. So in a way, it's funny. I'd had a call with my booking agent today, and he was saying, just the complications on trying to book a big band. He's like, I know the record's getting some great feedback, but it's hard to book a big band. And what I said to him, and he totally understood. I said, well, don't worry about booking the big band. Worry about booking me. So at this point, I just want to be out there, whether it's trio, quartet, big band, and I'll tell the story of my shoe and all of those different organizations, even with Tar Baby too. So that's what's coming up, and we're doing the Winter Jazz Festival with special guest Lisa Fischer in January at City Winery. So the big band, definitely, I would love to do more and more, but everybody knows how difficult it is to tour with the big band.
Absolutely. Orin, thank you, sir. This has been a fascinating backstory on the album. It's so good to see you in person. Be careful with that mantis, and best of luck with the album, man.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it. Take care.